Hello, everyone. Before I start the discussion, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Edwin C. Espanola, BEd 1, Batch 2. Okay, let's start the discussion. The beginning of the philosophy of Aristotle. So, who is Aristotle? Aristotle was born in 384 BCE in Stagira, a Greek colony of Thrace and northern Greece. Aristotle had a connection with the royal family of Macedonia kaya ang Ijapapa na si Nicomacheas is isa ka physician kang King Amontas II of Macedonia.
Good morning everyone, I'm Jerenji Blancada and I'll be the one who discussed critique on the Aristotelian ethics. Aristotle held that every human person is aiming towards the attainment of eudaimonia, which is considered by Aristotle as the highest happiness. And Aristotle also upheld the value of mesos. Mesos is the principle of the just middle that state that the basis of morality is the avoidance of the two extremes. Consequently, its aiming for eudaimonia may be contrary to the idea of just middle because eudaimonia aims for the highest happiness, which is an extreme.
I would I I would tackle about the philosophy of Aristotle. Aristotle was deeply influenced by Plato, but was suspicious of otherworldly elements in his teacher's thinking. Particular, the view that knowledge of the world cannot be accessed via the senses. Aristotle saw dangers in Plato's rationalistic idealism. So, waya siya ka angay sa ideya nan ija maestro kay nagbase ra man ini siya sa senses. After Plato effort to give a discussion on the concept of change, Aristotle took his turn in facing the problem of the changing and the challenges. According to Aristotle, principle varies according to principle of actuality or act. The kind of change. Act is the perfection of a being. Then the principle of potentiality or potency. It involves in general. Potency is the capability of a being to attain another perfection. In a physical thing, Aristotle called this principle as form, which signifies the act, and matter, which signifies the potency or the capacity of the matter to obtain another act. This teaching called hylomorphic doctrine. So Aristotle called the father of science because he was the first Western thinker of record to provide an adequate analysis, which a process of change based on the claim that form is inseparable from matter. The human person for Aristotle. In applying this principle to a human person, Aristotle went away from the concept of Plato. So for Aristotle, a human being is composed of a body and soul. He believed that the soul and the body are not separate entities. Separate entities in a human person, rather correlative constituents of one being. The soul forms the entelechy, the definite form of the body. Without the body, the soul will not be called a human person. Without the soul, the body will not called a human person also. So for Plato, the soul and the body are two separate entities. Plato described learning as a process of recollection. Then for Aristotle, he believed that the human mind is a tabula rasa, or a blank slate. He believed that the body and soul could not be separated from one another if a man would continue to be a human person. The soul is that part of the composite that animates and commands, while the body is the part of subordinate. The part that is subordinate, as the pencil is to the poet or the slave to the master. Aristotle held that the soul has two main parts. First is irrational soul, which is closely united with the body. Is divided into first is vegetative part. Second is desiring part. So sa vegetative part, it is manifested by the activities of nutrition, growth, and reproduction, while the desiring part is further subdivided into three progress level: the epithumia, the thumos, and the bolisis. This epithumia is the unruly and irrational sense desires and covetousness, while the thumos, which is the spontaneous impulses. Then the bolisis, which is the wishes and desires. Second, the soul has two main parts is the rational soul. Rational soul, which is completely independent of the body. Na-divide naman ni siya sa two. First is the phronesic or phronesis. Second is the speculative intellect. Ang phronesic is other known as the practical intellect, which is ordained towards action and determine the appropriate means in order to attain the end, while the speculative intellect is the pure thought or intellection, the level of contemplation. So this is the end of my report. Thank you.
So, good day everyone. Ako i-discuss ang Aristotelian ethics, no? Ang great contribution kuno ni Aristotle to the practical scientist was made known by his writings on moral philosophy and political theory. So, dyan three different versions ng Aristotle's moral philosophy. Ang pinakauna kay Eudaimonian ethics, ang ikaduha kay Nicomachean ethics, o ang ikatuyo kay Magna Moralia. So, ethics kuno dili ra kuno dyan science or an episteme, knowledge that deals with the absolute and eternal truths. Rather, ethics must be considered as techne, or an art, which is actually an art of living well. So every human person is naturally seeking towards the attainment of happiness. So the nature and purpose of human action tends towards happiness, which Aristotle terms as eudaimonia. So kita ko nunidyo tanan, nagsikta ko nunidyo ng happiness according to Aristotle. So, ang eudaimonia kuno implies that a person is really alive rather than just merely existing. So, kung ma-happy ka, dili ako kuno mulaang na nag-exist siya ka. So, alive ka, buhi ka, kay naka-feel ka ng happiness. So, in other words, the human person is fully aware, vital, and alert. So, like may kinabuhi ka, aware lamang ko, basta lamang nabuhi. So, alive ka, alert. So, this is more than being free of cares, of worries. So, baka lang na tako na alive tako, like, dili tako no karadyo mag-worries. Way ato paki sa mga tao, kung uni-ili lang ka, di ba kagana man sa John, way ato paki sa mga tao, kay, syempre, lahi na ba sa agad dyan, kaysa naman ato i-big deal ang tanan. Baga, kalain ni Dya. So, it implies exhilaration, great suffering, and great joy, as well as great passions. It implies a full life, not a pinch, a restricted one. So, actually, kinanglan masabud na ito maka-feel ng great sufferings. Dili ra kay kung pwede joy, no? Kay para malang ko na John is na full life. Dili ra John bagan kinusi ra na basta-basta ra, or iton bagan tag-restrict bitaw iton baga like dili Johnny mo na mo dyan. So, happiness kuno according to Aristotle na sab must not be connected with pleasure, inasmuch as pleasure is connected with the irrational part of the soul. Pleasure is not the goal of life, nor is the acquisition of wealth. So, ang happiness kuno nato dili kuno dapat dyan connected sa pleasure, kay syempre di ba lang man sila na ang kwarta makapalipay? Yes, makapalipay, pero dili sa tanang panahon kwarta ang solusyon para malipay. Like, di ba kinahanglan sab nato ng moral support ng mga tao na ato love, kay unon man jud nato kwarta kung waya ang support na ato gikinahanglan sa ato mga tao na gilove. Like, ang kwarta makita ra dyan, pero ang mga tao na nag-support sa ato, syempre dili dyan basta-basta makita. So ato sab dyan sila igna dyan. So man can only live a full life if he would be living with polis or the society. A rich and full life is a social life. For Aristotle, no one would choose to live without friends. So, may siguro tao na gusto na si Jara Isa, di ba? Gana masag dyan ato friends, kay in terms na ato kinahanglan, or gusto nato na kaluguan ng problema. Siyempre, kagana ba dyan ato kaluguan ng problema? Dili dyan, kung kita ra kay, pag kung kita ra, mabuang ta, or di ba mag-suicide ang iban. So, any action that is done is indulged excessively or insufficiently would go out of bounds and would become unreasonable and improper to the nature of human being. Instead, every person should act according to mesotis or just middle, neither deficient or excessive. So, kung muakta kuno like dapat jaon na ta sa middle. Kay kun musobrahan, kalain sab, kay kun mukuyang, lain sab. So, gana kuno kun jaon neutral na bitaw ta, like jaon na ta sa middle. So, virtue is an activity that proceeds from certain disposition. Virtuous act is that which proceeds from the right intention. Ang moral virtue is a rationally measured activity following the rule of the just middle, motivated by right intention and proceeding from a permanent disposition acquired through habitual action. So, amo dyan ng Aristotelian ethics. So, ang ini na sa anikaduha kay an action that proceeds from contemplation. So, in order for the human person to be sure that his action is done in permanent disposition, such action should be done in the act of contemplation. Such action is said to be coming from phronesis, or the practical wisdom which provides the insight to the truth about the intrinsic worth and excellence and beauty of godness, or the kanon of the action that is done. So, as a person, kinahanglan nato na himuon na ang mga maradyaw na butang ka. Siyempre, sino may sabganahan na himuon sa iyang mga dili maradyaw, malain sa badya ta. So, pag mag-contemplate ta, no, it involves actually the connection with God, like my spiritual belief ta. So, as an action, the phronesis is the practical intellect that properly decides to act. So, ini ko na phronesis am ko na ato mga kaalam na which in kabayuta kung uni mga sakto na ato himuon. So, in applying the phronesis, Aristotle, like Plato, viewed the communal life of the polis as the proper place for the exercise of the moral virtue. In fact, it is the very life of moral virtues, and thus the polis constitutes one of the ends of the human person. In which case, Aristotle's view on life can be likened to the view of Confucius that life is a blessing because it is an opportunity with the community where happiness really abounds. So, tanan mo siguro ta naka-appreciate sa life na tagtagaan ta ini na life kay para malipay ta. Nagdepende na lamang ini kung giuno nato pagdaya ang ato life. So, an action based on contemplation is the best action because not only is the reason and the best thing for us, but the reason are also best knowable objects. Contemplation is, therefore, to engage in the highest, most perfect type of reflection, the way it is in God, as the noesis. So, ining kuno contemplation, aware bita ta sa aware ta of God's being, and then ang ato action kay nako-concentrate ra kuno sa mga spiritual things, like mga spiritual na mga buluhaton, no, as a form of private devotion. So mas gana ko no kung mo akta sa based on contemplation, mag-reflect sa kay God, sa mga spiritual na mga himuonon. So Aristotle concepts of good differs from that of Plato's. For Plato, good signifies a transcendent, otherworldly, and of man. However, for Aristotle, the moral end is seen as something eminent in human activity and achievable in this life. So in order ko na to get assurance that the action of the human person is good, such action must originate from contemplation. So, amo lagi ini ang kay Aristotle kuno ng good mahitabo rin nila sa act na of contemplation. So a person must be able to have a good idea, and such idea must be transformed into action. So a person kuno who is performing his action according to his function or ergon is the most excellent way, arete, and in a habitual fashion is acting as a human person. Aristotle claimed that it is important to establish one's character based on his good deeds, inasmuch as such character will establish the value of the human person as a human person.